We're also following very, very closely what seems to be an odd phenomenon this year, where business groups, normally very friendly to Republicans, are loathed to Donald Trump. Not across the board, but an interesting survey at today's Financial Times, which we're going to elaborate on a little bit later, that show by a better than 2-to-1 margin, various business and trade associations representing business, representing about $3.5 trillion in sale, overwhelmingly prefer Hillary Clinton to Donald Trump. Not so much because they think Hillary Clinton is all that, but that they think that Donald Trump could be problematic and maybe get a trade war going. Hard to say, but they're scared. They say he's erratic, and they'd rather go with what they know. Now, that is a survey based on findings in the FT looking at trade associations, the groups that lobby for interest on Capitol Hill. It doesn't mean it's gospel, but the MIT professor of global economics, Simon Johnson, he does tell you a little bit about the fears of one Donald Trump. I want to get into the bigger issues, Professor, with you on what's coming down the economic pike. But what do you make of these concerns about Donald Trump?
I think the concerns being expressed by business groups and others, Neil, are very well founded. I think Mr. Trump's recent statements on the debt and on monetizing the debt on the Federal Reserve, and now on Dodd-Frank, on scrapping financial regulation, these are very irresponsible and destabilizing statements, so no wonder business is concerned.
All right, now, is the concern, and I read a little bit of this, is that a lot of business guys have no idea what Donald Trump stands for. Maybe he'll spell that out. We've had indications today that he's assembling the first signs of an economic team. Too early to say, but some breaking news on that coming up. But that he would ignite a trade war, this idea of tariffs on Chinese goods, and that he could actually, you know, lead to some trade issues and big global business, you know, short disruptions. What do you think?
That's a very good point, Neil, and not many people have picked up on that yet. But his latest statements with regard to China and our supposed leverage with regard to China, I think it means that he's willing to cut off all imports from China. And, of course, that cuts both ways. That's the beginning of a big, serious trade war that will be extremely disruptive to the private sector and to employment and to exports and everything else.
What if they're wrong, though? I always look at these kind of things, Simon, and, you know, the worst fears aren't realized. I guess maybe I'm showing my age, Simon, where I can remember all the doubts and concerns about Ronald Reagan, that he was simplistic, that his view that, you know, you cut taxes a lot and you'd ignite jobs and all of that and an economic boom. People were worried about that. Savvy business pros were very worried about that and him. Now, I'm not trying to liken Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump or Trump to Reagan, but could they be wrong on this?
Well, we can only judge Mr. Trump by his statements. That seems also entirely fair. And the statements that he's been making since he became the presumptive nominee are frankly incredible and I think completely unlike what Mr. Reagan or anyone else said at this stage in the election cycle. So who is advising Mr. Trump? Where is he getting these ideas? Why isn't this being filtered through the usual mechanisms where people say, well, it doesn't work that way, it's more complicated, you've got to be more careful with regard to a potential trade war? We don't see any of that yet. So we can only judge what we see and what we hear, and what we've heard so far is frankly quite disconcerting. You know,
Simon, I noticed as we were talking there, we were showing how some of the retailers are doing. Target is just getting bludgeoned on concerns that things are going to slow down there. Most of the retailers say, you know, maybe Amazon, Home Depot, are doing very, very poorly. Normally, not all the time, when they get into a serious downdraft, that presages something more ominous or worrisome, that a slowdown in the economy. You see a recession coming. Could you spell that out?
Well, I'm worried about recession, and I'm worried that the economy is really quite fragile, for example, as indicated by the retail performance that you just mentioned. So anytime you have a fragile situation like this, confidence is obviously the key. Consumer confidence, also business confidence. If we get into a situation where one candidate from a major party, from the Republican Party no less, is making destabilizing statements about the debt, about money, and about what's going to happen to finance, that is not helpful to confidence. And that by itself, before the election results, that by itself can weigh on confidence and can slow down the economy. And yes, we could slip back into recession.
Simon Johnson, MIT economics professor. Good read of things. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.